indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I just want to point out that we're having a little technical difficulties zooming in Counselor Duff. So you may see him appear at some point. I'm not sure, if either physically or remotely. And now we'll move to public comment. So this portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. And I will call you up, and if you can state your name and address for the record. Anyone from the public who wants to speak. That would be you. We're just easing into this in-person stuff.
I guess so. It's just me, right? Let's see. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Maria Labria Judge. I am not a resident of Rocky Hill, but I am the CEO for Rosehill Funeral Home and Rosehill Memorial Park, which is in Rocky Hill. And I used to live in Portland for 23 years, so my thing is about the ferry, and I know that Lisa kindly put a message up on Facebook during the weekend or whatever, and it was about the DOT thinking that they'd like to take the ferry and make it an electric ferry. I'm opposed. One of the things I started doing with Rosehill was I managed to pay for everybody who comes on the ferry with me. So for the last 6 years, I've met people from all over the world. And I routinely bring my staff on ferry days, which means we ride that ferry and we go places. And we actually go to Essex. We watch it go down in the winter. We watch it come back up, and we visit it during the winter while it's at the Essex boatyard. And so when it was in jeopardy of closing in 2019, I was extremely active in supporting keeping it open. And I happened to learn a lot about our ferry. And some of the things I've learned that is right now it's 66 years old. It is fully paid for, which is big because I'm a CPA for a living. So it costs about $100 every 2 weeks, which comes out to roughly about between $5 and $8 a day for diesel. So that's all we pay for it. And I don't count employees because they'd be part of this other thing anyway. And so in 2019, the state, as you all know, spent $4 million between the Rocky Hill, Glassbury Ferry, and Chester to renovate the landings, pylons, which was specific to, well, I'll talk to Rocky Hill. We also pulled that boat out of the water and the barge, and we went and visited it, and they renovated it. So literally, this boat and tugboat and barge have had engines and transmissions and all kinds of things replaced. So if anybody's a boater, it's like it's brand new. So we've already invested that time and money, into it. I understand upgrading, I understand new technology, I understand the whole gold green thing, but none of that's actually proven. And so for me, I'm really a big proponent of looking at other things. So one of the things that did come up was obviously it's not the original, because originally it was designed to be pulled across the river. We added horses because that made it easier. And then obviously the steam engine came into play. And I know that people think that the steam engine, the diesel, was replaced by a steam engine just because of technology. And the reality is, if you actually Google it, is that the steam engines were blowing up. So it actually was not a safer way of doing this. I also, again, I like to mushroom things. I tell my staff all the time, and my children, that you can have a great idea, but you have to mushroom it at least 5 times. And so when I look at it, I say, is it going to be quicker? And we don't even know the answer to that. I know that the steam engine ran about 3 knots and diesel runs 6. I've learned that. So that certainly was beneficial, and obviously not blowing up an engine was. But is it going to be cost effective? Our ferry is fully paid for. We've spent at least $2 million on our side, not just Chester's, to redo it and redo the pylons and refurbish it. What size is it? Is it going to fit in the slip that it already is? And probably not, because obviously it needs to have the charging stations. We'd need one on the Rocky Hill side and the Glastonbury side. And we'd also need one at Essex Boat Works, because that's where it has to go, because that's where it actually gets repaired and maintained through the winter. Obviously, the cost of doing that, where is that actually coming from? Is a concern, well, to me, I would hope to you guys. And between the charging stations, how long is it going to be? So is it only going to last a certain amount of hours, and now we have to let it sit, during the middle of the day? And how does that affect people that are actually using it, not just because I like to use it and play on the ferry, but actually to get places to and from for work or whatever? And that's certainly a concern. The estimated cost of repairs and maintenance, and who's going to be paying for that? Disposing of an old battery. That's a big deal. When we winterize the ferry, it takes at least 4 hours to get to Essex. So I don't think there's a charging station in the middle of the ocean, or river, whatever. So how is that actually going to work? Because my guess is it's probably not. I don't think that the technology is even up to speed to make that work. I don't know, but I think that those are serious concerns that you and obviously the DOT, should be having. My biggest concern is that if we have something that's been fully paid for, that costs $8 a day, and we've already been playing a game for years about closing it, when we spend $3.5 million, I know 2.8 is coming from the federal government, it's still our tax dollars. What happens? What happens to those repairs? What happens when we have other things that come up? And what is the cost going to be? Because if it's $5 for a car during the week and $6 on the weekend, obviously, if a minimum of $1 million is coming probably from Connecticut, what is the cost going to be for each ride? And then when we can't do it because it's too costly, we're going to shut that down. And when we shut it down, we've now shut down the oldest continuously running ferry system in the nation. So I'm obviously not a proponent, and I wanted to let you all hear that. I also have, real quick, I know I've probably gone over, I'm just going to give you out my ferry magnets, and then I'll sit down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Actually,
Thank you.
And actually, Paul, one of the captains,
Yeah.
designed this for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? Okay, we're going to move on to appointments and resignations, specifically for the Housing Authority. Are there any appointments or resignations?
No.
Thank you.
Mayor, we do have one from our side. We'd like to assign Tino Sampio to the Housing Authority.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to assign Tino Sampio.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right. Any discussion?
Is he currently on the Housing Authority?
No,
Is he
we'll be
sitting on?
taking over for Mr. Coster, who is left, but the term started May 1st, so he'll be jumping into that term that started
No,
May 1st.
that's incorrect.
No?
The term started January 2020, Mr. Cosker's term. All three, there was three motions that we had, or three people that were on, and then one stepped down, Saunders. But that was January 2020. Those people were appointed.
So what would be the time period for Tino?
It would be, he's doing the remainder of Mr. Cosker's term.
Mm-hmm.
So it would go until January, I want to say 19th or 20th, 2025.
Okay.
Right,
The term is 5 years.
right. We should have appointed him back in April to replace Mr. Kosker.
Right,
So
but
this
still,
is-
his term is the continuation of Mr. Cosker's, which was January 2020. He doesn't get a whole,
Okay.
I looked at it, it's in the statute.
Yep, yeah, that's fine.
All right, you want to,
I mean, there's no amendment, right, to the motion?
No.
No, we still get appointed, just
Okay.
we're clarifying the
time
blank.
yeah, okay.
I mean,
so-
just, my understanding was that he did attend a meeting in May. Do we know if he made the quorum for that meeting?
I actually don't know much about this, to be honest with you.
I mean, the only concern would be if he made the quorum, then any votes they took would not be valid. So I don't know, I'm just asking, can we just clarify that to make sure that there was no,
John, could you reach out to someone over there at
Okay.
the Housing Authority?
just to be on the safe side?
Yep.
Great.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All right. Approval of the minutes. A, Town Council Special Meeting, September 13th, 2021.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Town Council special meeting minutes from September 13th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
One abstain.
Yep. Town Council meeting September 20th, 2021.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the town council meeting minutes of September 20th, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to subcommittee reports, finance.
Finance has not met since our last council meeting, so no report.
Thank you. Government operations.
Government operations met earlier this evening. Just some of the highlights. The old generator at Firehouse 3 has been removed, so that project is complete. The roof on Fire Station 3 is going to start being replaced, hopefully toward the end of October, assuming they can get the materials needed. Otherwise, it'll may slip into November. The Rock Hill High School electronic sign is up and running, and the brickwork around it is done. The only thing we may have to do is some landscaping, but essentially that's completed. And the West Hill School HVAC replacement project is scheduled to be done this weekend during the long Columbus Day weekend. And I think that's the extent of the highlights. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Senior liaison. Nope, sorry, public safety.
Sure, Madam Mayor, there was no meeting to report on. However, Public Safety did ask the town manager to get some Safe Street signs, some speeding signs. I'll show an example of what they are. So these lawn signs are available, first come, first served, to residents that feel their street, corner, or street is a little bit too fast. And you just have to check with the town manager on that. But these signs were purchased in, as part of the Rocky Hill Safe Streets Initiative. This is determined by fielding a lot of calls from concerned residents. I have one here that I'm taking to a resident myself tonight. It's also in working with the PD, the town for Safe Streets has a lot of mobile speed devices into play. So we're trying to hit this at all aspects, and then communicating with the highway department as to how to slow traffic down. And so we thought this might be one inexpensive way. It was a matter of a couple $100s to purchase the lawn signs, and we'll see how it goes. The next meeting is October 18th at 5:30.
Thank you.
So Ed, if residents would like to pick them up, they can just stop by the town hall. They're up in the town manager's office, and they can take a sign for as long as they last.
First come, first served.
Yeah. Or they can make an appointment with you, Ed, to have a special delivery.
Okay, senior liaison.
Senior liaison did meet. On the senior liaison side, the newsletter has a new name to it. There were over 80 submissions for the new name, and the newsletter will now be known as The Compass. I believe that'll be effective with October's newsletter coming out. I think the last one that came out was the end of September. So, well, the next newsletter coming out will be labeled The Compass.
We may have gotten October, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure. One did come out.
I think it's going to be November.
November's, okay. November's is coming out, will be labeled The Compass. Human Services is, also on the senior services, there are several programs coming out. Our new director is putting out. I'm not going to try to list them all. They are on the town website, and hopefully if you're getting the newsletter, you can take a look. Our new senior community center is now open, subject to COVID restrictions, but hopefully we'll be able to start some more programming in there very shortly. Human Services is running the renter rebate and operation fuel programs as they do every year. Anybody that needs assistance filling out the applications can reach out to Human Services at 860-258-2799. Human Services also had 2 fundraisers in the month. The Connecticut Street Legends Car Show, which was held, raised $2,200 for the Human Services Department. And the Mayor's Golf Tournament, hosted by the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce. The final numbers are not in, but they're believed to be between $12,000 and $15,000. So a very successful event. Both Human Services and Senior Services are looking for volunteers. Senior Services is looking for help with the new senior center. And Human Services is looking for help to check in on residents within the community. So some of those are just simple phone calls, if anybody has time. Melissa did note that some of the people who were volunteering are no longer working remote, returned to their office and can't continue as volunteers. Also, it was noted that the Health District is holding a flu clinic, drive-through flu clinic at Elm Ridge Park on October 5th from 2 to 6 p.m. and October 14th from 10 to 2 p.m. We do need to schedule appointments, which can be done with the Central Connecticut Health District. And that concludes the Senior Liaison report.
Thank you. Land acquisition and farmland preservation.
Sure, we did meet on September 28th at 6 p.m., and we were able to discuss the final cleanup of the Parcel B, which is the area closest to New Britain Avenue that has the house still on it and a couple barns and miscellaneous structures. That parcel should be cleaned up, non-building wise, I believe, as we speak right now, John, this week.
Yep.
So the debris is removed from the soil and the lot, which leaves the buildings remaining to be taken down. And that would be through the Brownfield grant, I believe, John?
Yep, yep.
And that final plan is with the DECD right now for finalization?
Ray got approval from DECD that they will accept Zuvik as our consultants, whatever the proper term is for that, so we don't have to rebid that and start all over again. And basically the contract has been sent to DECD for their review of Zuvik services.
So we're
waiting for that.
Right, we'd be very excited if that's cleaned up before the holidays, or somewhat on schedule before the end of the year.
That'd be very optimistic.
Weather permitting, I guess.
If possible, but I would think the cleanup would be done as far as the contractor finishing up the brush and the metal pickup. As far as the environmental cleanup, that's probably still sometime next year to get rolling.
Gotcha, all right.
Because remember, the state's involved.
No additional tests are needed on the building, so as soon as they're ready to go, they can move on it, I guess is probably the best thing to say about it.
I think we've had people come in and look at the building, see if there's anything worthwhile in there.
And then finally, when we'll talk about it under consent agenda, but a land use plan contractor, the University of Connecticut looks like they'll be our land use planner for planning the balance of the site, where the barn will go, where the parking lot will go, where the community gardens and how that'll be situated. We have a professor and his students doing that, so we'll discuss that more under consent agenda.
You discuss it now.
Okay.
Consent agenda is just the consent agenda, yes or no,
Okay.
unless someone wants to pull it off. And the only thing you just need to add, Ed, is that there's a cost of $10,000 for the study, for the time for the professor and the students and all that, and we would cover that cost out of the remaining funds in the Stratska referendum.
Yeah. So it's not final, in other words, that they'll get the go-ahead, they'll start working up, they'll come to Plan Farmland to give us a presentation at the next farmland meeting,
Right.
UConn.
Yeah,
And if we vote for the consent agenda, so that group will come before us and give us a presentation how they'll do it, then they'll come back with a plan that will be modifiable to the town's liking. Chris, I believe that's how we left it with farmland.
Yeah, and I think there's also an opportunity for, as this progresses, they gave us a timeline, and as it progresses, there will be opportunities for the public to weigh in as well.
Our next farmland meeting will be October 26th at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Liaison to the state rep and state senator.
No report?
School liaison,
No meeting, no report.
capital improvements committee.
Capital Improvements Committee met on Wednesday, September 29th at 6 p.m. This committee is an opportunity for the Board of Education and the town side to discuss potential capital projects, both short-term and long-term, and I'll just highlight some of those quickly. The Board of Education is looking at 3 projects. One is a replacement of the GMS roof, the Stevens HVAC system, and on the longer side, the GMS science classrooms. They have engaged a consultant on the science classrooms. It's 12 to 18 months for design for the Stevens HVAC system, and the GMS roof is a project that we may be looking at in the next budget cycle. Hopefully, the GMS roof and the Stevens HVAC may be eligible for state reimbursement, similar to other projects that we discussed, or that we did recently. On the town side, we looked at a couple of items on the facility side, a couple of roof replacements, both at Town Hall, and as well at Town Hall, carpeting, painting. Police Department was looking in need of an elevator, some elevator work, a new generator, and HVAC chiller unit. The Parks Department was looking at a garage roof and Elm Ridge LED lights. Fire Department was looking at training room and office remodeling at Firehouse 3. Firehouse 1 was in need of some brick repointing, and Firehouse 2 was a roof replacement. On the Public Works side, they were looking at a new boom mower. I guess the one we have is quite old and down more than it's up. Parks was also looking at some field projects, Dura Edge at the high school and Vecino Field, Maxwell Park soccer field regrading. They were also looking for a wide area mower and a backhoe loader, as well as a longer-term item is the Elm Ridge Park pool that was discussed. The library, we're going to hear a little bit more tonight about their pod design startup, and on the longer-term side is a redesign update for the library itself. Our next meeting will be scheduled after the November election.
Question. John, what was that computer program that Parks and Rec got about 4 years ago?
Facilities
Dude?
Department.
Dude? Was it the Dude?
Facilities Dude.
Are they still using that for forecasting things
Yeah.
5 years out?
Yeah, they're using that, and then they're starting to incorporate the utility cost as well.
Is what that program is producing long-term being shared with the CIP committee so they're on the same page with what's needed?
Well, probably not everything in that program that's being generated is being shared with, but some of the high points that came to light recently with the air conditioning chiller at the police department and some of the roofs and so on. And then they also started mentioning this building's getting 20 years old, so it sort of may need a roof replacement because it's out of warranty, as well as maybe just some painting and carpeting down the road. But the full report wasn't shared with the committee yet, but some of the highlights were.
Okay. Thank you.
Economic Development Subcommittee?
No meeting, no report.
Okay. Moving on to consent agenda, item A, Yukon to develop a conceptual site/land use plan for Straska Farm. I'll entertain a motion.
Sure, a motion to accept Yukon to develop a conceptual site land use plan for Straska Farm.
Okay.
Second? Sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're a little rusty. Moving on to old business, discussion, possible action, community/senior center.
Well, I think we touched base on the community center already tonight, and I think most people know that it will be opening up on Tuesday with some limited programming. due to our 2 bathroom problems in the new community center, we're limiting the capacity so that we meet proper building codes, regulations, and so on. So those 2 bathrooms will be off limits probably until the Christmas holiday break, which when the building is probably going to be pretty much empty, it will allow the contractors to come in and try to hook those 2 bathrooms to the sanitary pipe coming down from the new nurses station. And other than that, we had the ribbon cutting on Saturday, which, thank goodness for nice weather, made the event, I think, very positive. So that's about it on the senior center, just waiting for the bathrooms.
Okay, update solid waste and recycling of residence trash project.
Yes, last time I think we had our consultants in talking about the various options available to the town on changing how they disperse their solid waste material. And the talk was that the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, or DEEP, was coming out with a grant program. They were given $2 million, I think it was, from the legislature to have programs associated with solid waste. They came out with their guidelines last week, and it's basically a 2-phase approach where the first phase, towns that are interested in pursuing a grant to do this type of solid waste work would submit an expression of interest, which is basically just summarizing that the town is interested in doing something, and we are looking into pay-as-you-throw programs, or the food separation program initially. And our consultants put a letter together and sent it in as part of the application. So we're on the queue. The DEP people will be reviewing it, and if they're interested in what the town is thinking of doing, they're going to have a meeting with town representatives to sort of discuss the plans, and then probably go into more detail, budgeting and so on. So as of right now, we expressed an interest that the town would like to do something to DEP, and hopefully we'll pass their review standards and get a chance to meet with them and discuss the project in more detail along with our consultants. So as of right now, we're waiting till around November 16th to hear back from DEP. Oh, I must see them right now. I just need something to throw me
I was
off.
just gonna say that.
Off on a tangent on you
It's like
guys.
Saturday, yeah.
So I'll go back to my solid waste,
Where were we?
whatever you guys like to call my, just a notice, email I received today from Mirror, our friends where we take our trash to until June 30th. They're having a brief informal presentation to their municipal customers on Thursday, October 14th. And it's primary presentation on their part that will provide a high-level status update on the disposal capacity procurement process presently underway by Mirror. They have issued RFPs and received multiple proposals for transfer station operations and for transfer to and disposal of solid waste at alternate locations. So again, they want towns to attend these meetings to understand their challenges and begin to consider how our town can best address them. So that's on October 14th. I'll be attending it. It's a Zoom meeting. I believe the mayor probably can't pass up a good solid waste meeting, so she'll be there.
How about Counselor Thoreau? Come on.
Would you like invite to? I'll send you.
Sure.
Who would say no to an offer like that?
I'll send it to you. The email has all the Zoom information lower, so just Know where that email is on October 14th, 2 o'clock.
You're welcome, Mimi.
Trying to hide out here.
So I covered my deep grant and my
Yes, you did.
mirror
You did.
report, so I'm all through with my solid waste talk.
Thank you. All right, how about this one? Discussion, possible action, American Rescue Plan, ARP funding options.
Where's that phone? Yes, I believe in your package, in there is, Ray was able to get from this town of Bethel, a plan that they developed as far as getting some of that AAR money out to distressed businesses. They sort of set up some of their guidelines, what their, the money can be used for. They even have a rubric on how to evaluate them, as well as an application form. So that's a good roadmap on if the town's thinking of going that route, that a lot of the ideas are already down on paper as a way of going about it. Again, the way they were handling it, I guess it must be like I would think the council may approve a dollar amount to be used, and maybe a committee of, staff members working during business hours to evaluate, and of them, maybe have them, a number of them, people submit and evaluate the ones that the town feels deserve this grant, if it's going that route or what. But again, Ray did get one from another town that is in existence as a guide for the town council to use as decide whether to go this route or not.
Okay, thank you.
Just on that application or the sample, it noted one of the items under the approval process, that priority will be given to woman-owned and minority-owned businesses. And if we opt to take that template, I'd just like to see that change to entities that are certified by the state as SBEs, MBEs, or WBEs. So they've already gone through a certification process. We're not recreating that wheel. And I am adding SBEs, which are small businesses, under 50 employees and under $10 million in revenue.
Alan, would that include other protected classes as well?
Well,
Or just specific to
MBEs
these two categories?
Yeah, MBE is minority business enterprise, and WBEs are women business enterprises. So it's just making sure that they're certified by the state, not just putting someone's name as operating a business that's not actually involved in the day-to-day operation.
Sure, yeah, I'm not as familiar with all the terminology. And again, some of this might be depending on how many applications we get, but sometimes if those categories also include other things like veteran-owned businesses, things like that, I don't know if that's its own category, if that would fall in one of those broader definitions you mentioned, but something that we might want to include as well.
And I'd be more than willing to put veteran-owned businesses in there as well.
Does it talk about nonprofits? I don't recall.
It does not. I did not see anywhere that it mentioned nonprofits.
I think that would be a good thing. I think just in having some brief conversations with Ray, that it's pretty complex for us to sit here tonight and try to figure this out. And I think John is on the right path when he says, we can have staff sort of vet what other towns are doing, and then perhaps have a little subcommittee similarly to like when we were working on the commission ordinance or working on the trash, right? Keep it small, and then you guys bring it back up to the council. Probably seems like the easiest things to do, because there's even just determining what is a small business. There's a lot of different ways to define that, right? So if we're comfortable with that, then maybe that's the way we tackle this one, because it seems a little complicated to try to figure it out.
I like that option. Like it will, we'll be able to like figure out all the nuances of what we want to put in there, and it'll be like, if you can, it can be put in front of the council, like with like a few days, then we can go through it, and like if we need to amend anything, we can. But yeah, I like that idea.
Does it make sense, John, to sort of have like a chart that shows how much money we're looking to allocate to different projects now from ARP? Because I think we might get lost.
Well, I think we know how much we have left in this year's tranche. And it's just a matter of, we could call this phase one, and you could allocate a certain dollar amount, and depending on the popularity and so on, then you can always have a phase two. But it'd probably be wise to set a dollar amount and then request for applications, and then review and maybe rank them accordingly. But again, we shouldn't go off wild spending money that we don't have yet.
Right. Do a revisit.
I think it's yes.
Okay. All right.
And I think, so, Bethel did a very, they got the rubric, they did a very detailed job here. They also have a very kind of narrow window in terms of when they accept the applications. I think this is a really good find for Ray, but, I do think we may want to not be as maybe prescriptive. Maybe we can empower that panel with some of our goals, but I think our goals could be, we want to keep businesses that are in town in business, especially if we're closing a gap between maybe some other assistance programs that are out there and what they need. So we probably need to be fairly, not exactly fast acting, but we want to be able to do our due diligence. But if someone's facing an imminent need, it probably can't take 3 months to get them $5,000, because if that $5,000 is the difference between them going out of business and not, it's probably not going to get to them in time. So I think if we can be, very clear about what the goals of the program are and empower that committee, that may be something where we don't have to go through this level of detail. And then, we may also want to consider, how do we balance the need to make sure we're doing our due diligence and being transparent with how we're spending money that was allocated to the town back out to the community, with the idea that it is hard for some people to ask for help. So if those folks go to make their case, or if there's another committee meeting, maybe have that be, I don't know, I'm not sure about a closed meeting because you have to do some details, but some level where we're not really, putting them in the position where they feel that they're coming really with their hat in their hand to the town. We want people, the purpose of this money that was allocated was to help our town, help our constituents and our community. So we don't want to make folks feel excluded if it's too, onerous or humiliating to come and try to get it. So just a couple things there as we, move forward and try to allocate this money in a fair and transparent way. And I'm not sure if there's another similar program about how folks who aren't businesses but might need help in the community, what they've done, but that should be something that we looked at too from the town staff standpoint.
Yeah, those are valid points, and actually there are. So, we can certainly have.
The one thing Bethel had was number of employees. They were just dealing with businesses with up to 25 employees. You want to keep that standard in place?
I think that makes sense, but, I think we'll let Ray and whomever take a look at what the other towns are doing and maybe do a comparison and then make that recommendation to, when you're ready, make that recommendation to us to form the subcommittee, right? And maybe, do you want to set a timeline?
Well, we can work
Okay.
on it, but I don't know whether it can be really looked at until probably December,
Yeah.
because we have something coming up in November that may cause us to take a break. But,
Okay.
but I know
we
Ray's
will
Ray
roll
looked at a
this
couple
out.
other cities and so on, but if comfortable with the Bethel model, we can tweak it on, as Alan, does small businesses and women's minority businesses get some sort of certificate?
They
or-
do.
So that would be something
Yeah,
they would
we
have to
we
provide.
actually could,
There's a listing actually
you could actually
available.
pull the listing, I think, from the state website
Right.
for all those within Rocky Hill, so we'll know who they are.
Yeah, we have it on DAS.
Oh, good.
And not just for priority, in the case that we're, I guess, close to allocating the whole pot of money, this could be used as a tiebreaker. It's not saying those are the only folks who are eligible, right?
But just priority will be given to those groups, and adding veteran-owned to that.
Okay.
So one quick question, clarification, John. Are we saying that that December comment you made, we will not be able to put it out there until December? What was the, I didn't quite get.
Well, and I'm just saying, we have one more meeting with this council,
Right.
and then we have something happening in November, and there's only one meeting scheduled, official town council meeting scheduled for November. And then generally, it's like a transition of appointments and so on. So but something might be available and could get done by November, but I'm just saying realistically.
Yeah, I was just piggybacking on Chris's point, like, we don't want to wait like 2 months, right? Do we? I mean, that's all. I don't know if we can make it happen earlier or not, but I was just wondering about that, and yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. What is?
I think it might be nice, I guess the assumption is we don't know who's going to be the members of that committee, because the subcommittee will be made up by whoever the council is after November, whatever 9 folks it is. But perhaps we could get it to a point where we have an open application process, so whenever that first subcommittee meets, if it's in November or if it's in early December, that they've got something to review. I think if we wait to December to start, that could be
Right.
that could be tight. And that's, I guess it depends on how long the whole process will take, but this was kind of an emergency measure that was passed with the idea of getting this into people's hands who need it. I don't have a good sense of, what that need happens to be, but if it's out there, we should be more proactive in addressing it if we can, even if we just hand it over to whomever else happens to be on the subcommittees in November.
Well, I think if you use the Bethel model and tweak it here and there, we might be able to have something, but if there's a lot of changes going on, then, and so on, where, this looks like it's in place and apparently working. Did you say, Ray? They're using it right now?
They have 75 applicants now. They allotted a total of $350,000 to their bid program, hoping to help 70 consultants.
It'd be great to hear some examples. I mean, I don't know if they're still vetting, but some examples of how the funds are being used too.
So along those lines, I mean, would it make sense that we have an economic development subcommittee of the council that hasn't met in the last 2 years? And that would probably be the right place to review applications after the town staff's sorted them out and putting those recommendations through. That would be possibly, we set the process in place, and who's ever on that committee after November would be tasked with that responsibility.
I just wonder, John, are they statutorily required to do something specific, that subcommittee, or they can take on a task like this?
I believe they can take on any task.
Yeah, it's a mayoral.
Okay.
So
All
it
right.
is following the Bethel model. They use their economic development commission.
So, Alan, quick thing though, from a next steps perspective, right? What will you? So, are you still tweaking? We are having the Bethel model, but are we tweaking it still? And who is doing the tweaking?
I believe
Is there
staff
something-
is going to do that.
Well,
Okay.
And then they'll let us know when that's ready.
And then bring it up to the
What we-
subcommittee. Okay,
What you could
great.
try to do is tweak it for the next meeting, Ray, just a few items that we have to add to the Bethel.
I'm afraid to stand up.
You're going to have to, though, because now you're talking and you're not on the record. Poor
No.
Joanne.
No Ames questions for Ray. He has not eaten at Tomato Joe's yet.
Really good mood because my team won for a change.
Congratulations.
I see that.
I jump into that, Joy. Thank you.
Short-lived. Yeah.
I noticed it.
Won't be saying that a lot this year, but
I
I'm
can
sure
get,
Chris
I can
did
get
too.
something pulled together in a couple of weeks, week or two, or less. There are a number of other municipalities that I think have maybe a better elements that we can pull out and merge with Bethel's project.
Ray, what size town population-wise is Bethel?
Bethel, I think, is like 19,000 population.
similar
18.5.
size.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they have a very good, quite a nice downtown. So they have a lot of small businesses downtown.
And you say they set the initial topside limit at 370,000?
350.
350,000 with an average grant or maximum grant of 5,000?
Yeah, up to 5,000.
Up to 5,000. Do they make the business request an amount? Of course, I guess you
Yeah,
would always
abs-
request 5,000 if you knew that was the max, but maybe people would request less if all they needed was a 1 month's rent, you know?
It's up to the applicant, sort of like we did for our facade program a few years ago. We had 14 or 15 facades done, and the applicant will fill out an application and tell you what they need. And we need to document the need with certifications and our Department of Revenue Service letters of in good standing and a lot of other documentation. So the documentation, and it's on the applicant. We just get the requirement information, and then so when we do have to actually report it back to the federal government, we'll be in a good place. So it's up to the applicant to tell us what they need the money for and why they need it. And that will be spelled out in the application in some way or form.
Ray, just one, do you have any feel for, have any businesses come forward, I guess, and requested assistance of this type? Trying to get an idea for how many we may have looking for help?
No, only one,
Okay.
and that was a couple of weeks ago. This business owner was not eligible for PPP or the EIDL loan program, and she didn't even start the business. That's why she wasn't eligible. So no, I know there are a few hundred businesses in town that have received PPP and the the EIDL loan in town. We have quite a few businesses that have less than 15, 25 employees, so it should work out pretty well. If we keep a tech cap at 25 or even less, if you want to go even smaller, to maybe spread or maybe impact a smaller bit, maybe have a better impact on the maybe the lost businesses that are getting lost in this whole process, if we can find them.
Because the Bethel one, the business had to be operating like in January 2019.
Yeah.
So it's more trying to keep existing businesses going, not seed money for a new business.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think Bridgeport requires somehow they have to document that that business is creditworthy and demonstrate that it will continue to be in business for at least a year or longer. The grant is given.
I guess this is probably something that would be more for that committee to determine, but, you know, if someone in good faith started a business in 2020 and this tidal wave hit them, I don't know that we'd want to be any harsher on them than started in 2019. You know, I think it depends on how many people will be coming to us, but I would rather personally leave those types of decisions, if we're going to have to like split hairs, up to the folks in that committee, get to use whatever their best judgment is based on the individual facts, and try to come up with something where people feel like they can't apply for it because they don't check all the boxes. So I'm not sure if that's, if we can be broader and faster, and that way that committee and then the council can kind of endorse, as a final stop line to make sure everyone is kind of giving the money
I
away.
think they're using this rubric,
Yes.
which means that there's weights to all these categories, so you don't get like a pass-fail, but you get like, here's your score, and then you look around and see the other scores, and
That's a way to do it, I suppose. I was actually, I don't want to argue, but I was actually thinking of tightening up what the categories, eligible categories for the uses of the funds, and make it clearer. So when you do go to report back a couple of years from now to the government, it's very easy to document, okay, this was done for this purpose, and this money was used, and here's the result, as opposed to keeping it a little more, flexible, I guess. Just an idea that I think it might work better, but we can work on that too.
I think if we're going to be held to a standard, well, hopefully we'll be held to a standard, but if there's something that we have to do in the back end to justify that we issued these costs or these grants in accordance with the goals of the program, then we should absolutely be doing that. But hopefully we don't also want to make it so strict that no one can apply.
We want to make it simple and easy for the applicant.
Okay. Thank you. So I think we have that one down.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll work on something and present it next meeting, and then probably think of an allocation for phase one. And then as soon as, if it looks okay, then we'll advertise it that following week, that Tuesday going on,
Okay.
and try to get some applications in for the next time the committee meets.
Okay. And I apologize, out of respect for Mary, we should do you next. Yes? Okay. Would you like to come up, or do you want to just observe?
I think she better come up.
We should have asked Ray if Bethel had an electric ferry while he was up here.
Used to be the home of the Duracell. So they got the battery-powered ferry.
Okay. Would you like me to review my request?
Sure, yeah.
To give you a little bit of history, in January 2020, a lifetime ago, we started doing a space planning, a space analysis with getting feedback from people. It was for a long-range plan, and we had that finished in February 2020, and there was a lot that we thought would be way down in the future. And then the pandemic happened, we pulled it out, and we used it almost as a roadmap to make some changes. Like, we wanted to have less touching. We didn't want to have you hand a card, give the card back, give books. And so that's why we went with the RFID program that we did the last couple of months. We've done a lot of other things because we wanted to do long-range planning. If we have to replace a piece of furniture, we wanted to fit it into the overall picture of what we needed. And so this fits into sort of the future. I mean, I'm not coming to do the huge ask, just to know that we're watching and we're waiting, and there could be state library money coming in the future or some other things. But this pod that we're asking for is part of our future plans, because we did have architectural reviews, and we're again using that as a roadmap. And anyone who's been in the library, pre-pandemic, we had 400 to 600 people a day, up to 800. It's not a quiet building, although people think libraries are quiet, but they're not. But we do get asked for quiet spaces. Especially the last year, we've been helping a lot of people file for government assistance programs, unemployment, Social Security disability, helping them research health. And we can't do that out in the open, that we really want to use privacy and discretion of when we talk to people. So this pod that I submitted shows that it's acoustically quiet. You can't hear from the outside, and vice versa. So you can go in there, study, and have a quiet area, or you can go in and have a quiet conversation and nobody can hear you from outside. That's one piece. The other piece we're sort of looking for is, everybody has their cell phones. They take their calls in the grocery stores. They also take their calls into in the library, and we're all part of their conversation. So we would love to have this little old-fashioned phone booth where they could go in and just nobody else can hear them, and we would sort of direct them. I mean, we've had people come to the library and do their Zoom interviews. We've helped people do the resume and we're really excited when they get the Zoom. Even that little pod telephone booth could work for them doing a Zoom interview, and not everybody has to hear. So that's kind of a little snapshot of what we're asking for, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have one question. I would anticipate that the Air 3 Square would be in high demand. Do you need just one, or?
Well, eventually our long-range plan would be at least have two, but we're just asking for one right now. And that's just like a sample of what we're looking for. I mean, that's the one some other libraries went with. And we're hearing different things about what the turnaround time to get it, but it could be like 2 or 3 months out to get it, but.
How do you envision people reserving it?
We have some software that part of like our same with our museum pass or some other things that you can make reservations for, and so we would do it. Other libraries, sometimes you're just 2 hours. It all depends sort of on demand.
I know in some of us that work in corporations, reserving conference rooms have that color coding calendar and all that stuff. So I would envision that would be similar to this.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mary, how would you manage it from a security point of view? I mean, what obligations do you have, you know, I mean, how do you monitor it or
Well-
make sure that it gets, you know, there's, you know, it's safe and secure as, you know,
Well, and we've talked a lot about that, and that's actually why we think there's certain ones that are all wood panel, and you can only see other than a little window, and I think we'd like to have the full glass, so you're in a fishbowl, but we can't hear you, we can see you. We wouldn't have a lock, so you couldn't lock yourself in there or anything like that. So we think that we would be able to monitor it and manage it in that way. But there are some that are kind of like igloos that I don't think we're interested in having.
and you'd have to sign your name down, so you would know the entrant, the users coming and going.
Right.
Thanks.
I mean, and it'd be right out there. And so.
Mary, just in this COVID world that we're in, when you're renting these out, or not renting, using it for an hour, and the next person's coming in for an hour, how do you maintain the cleanliness, sanitation
So-
of the unit?
We have had, I've probably know far more about cleaning in the last year and a half, but we've had the same issue with just our computers. I mean, our computers are turning over every hour. We have wipes, so we have a noonday clean, spray down and things like that, all the high touch area. But then we've gone through a lot of wipes, right? We put the onus sort of on the person using that computer, so we don't go and spray it down, but they have the things. Some people are even bringing their own if they aren't feeling comfortable. But we would make sure it was on the regular cleaning schedule, and then also provide wipes for somebody who wants to be extra sure.
I mean, pre-COVID, I never would have asked the question.
No. I mean, like I said, I now know far more about wipes and kill times and all that kind of stuff.
And the only other question, I guess, with this is it's going to sit, I guess, within the library?
Yeah, so
does it ventilate?
it has its own ventilation system, but it's just, I mean, the alternative is to build a room, and that gets more expensive. Plus, we really are going into a mobile library. I mean, anything that we do is our chairs are going to be on wheels. I mean, our desks are going to be on wheels. So this could be moved very easily to another location. But right now it has a fire. It's fire rated, so it does have a fire system in it, but it has its own ventilation. So we just have to work in getting it near a plug, so then it can be plugged in.
Thank you.
Kind of just picking up along those questions. So maybe just give us an idea. This is more than just a cubicle, obviously. So like what kind of materials is this? It's somewhat permanent but somewhat temporary. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, so it's sort of, I mean, it's the four walls, and you can take it apart and move it to another, but it's got the acoustical soundproofing, and this one is glass and acrylic, and I don't know, I can find out more of the materials. We've been researching several of them, but they all have, the key thing is the soundproofing.
Right. But like you said, because I guess there's like a longer range plan for the library as far as, renovation and things. So even getting this, there'll still be a place for this, maybe not in the same spot, but
right.
There's always.
It's part of the long range plan that we're working on of what we want, and it was solving an issue that we got pre-pandemic, asked over and over, was I just need a place to study, or I just need a quiet place to meet with one person. I need a place to Zoom. We have a lot of people pre-pandemic that were what we call campers, that we were their Starbucks, that they saved money by not going to buy coffee, but they'd come work on their laptop, tie into our Wi-Fi, and spend the day, especially in the summer when we were air conditioned and things. So we're just thinking there was definitely in the long range plan that we have at least 2 of these pods that we would want.
Right. And roughly, what's the size of a pod? Just so is it saying here with the,
I don't know.
roughly speaking, I mean, not that.
It's like 84 inches, 110 inches, something like
So
that.
like 11 by 10 or
10
something.
or something
Yeah,
like
okay.
that. I mean, I do it like camping with a tent. If you're 2 people going camping, you really should get a 4-person tent.
Yeah.
And if you're 4 people, you really should go for that 6
Right.
or 8. These say they can fit 4 to 6, but I really think they're going to be to, and especially in this COVID world.
And maybe just talk a little about the phone booth that's also shown on here.
Yeah.
That's not instead of, that's in addition.
That's in addition, right?
Right, okay.
And whether it's this time or it's in our future plans.
And so is that literally just like a smaller version of the pod, basically?
It is. It's just, think of the old of us, remember going in with that, and it's just missing the phone. So
Okay.
you just open it up, you go in, and it's quiet. You can
Just a quiet place to bring your phone to have a private
bring your,
conversation.
right.
Okay. And that's also able to be moved around as
It
you
is,
go through.
it is.
Okay.
But we were thinking it would be right in our lobby, so we're like, you, over there, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Where exactly is it going, Mary?
So the phone booth, we now have a cabinet where we do our curbside service, but that had just been a bulletin board, so it would just go there. It literally is probably just a little bit bigger, twice as big as this podium.
Okay.
So that would be right in our front lobby.
Okay.
The meeting room sort of thing is by our art wall and our friend's book sale. There's kind of a corner that we don't have to do anything to. So
Okay.
we're thinking it would go there. Eventually, the long-range plan is in the back of the library, kind of near the window that looks at the new community center. But short-term, we'd have to move a lot of things. So that's why we're thinking the other area.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Just one other question. Mary, the cost you was the $33,000 of the two items. Is that cost to purchase or cost to install, assemble?
It hopefully is everything. I've been having trouble getting some up-to-date quotes because I sort of looked at this. I've been watching what other libraries have been asking and have been doing. So it's pretty close. I hope that they haven't gone way up, but that's the cost another library just paid for.
But does that?
Includes installation and
Includes
shipping
installation,
and
okay.
everything, yeah. That's
Okay.
what they say. I mean,
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
okay, thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, based on the presentation, I'd like to make a motion to approve, let's say $35,000, so we have a little bit of cushion, for the library, let me read it correctly, office pod and phone booth.
And I'll second.
Any discussion?
I think it looks great, and for those of us who work from home with kids, hopefully the cost comes down a little bit.
You just need the phone booth, Chris?
Two of them.
I'll start
Two.
anywhere. Phase one.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, what else is on our list?
I would like to continue the discussion from last council meeting on the American Rescue Plan, where we talked about, one of the suggestions was an allocation of funds to the volunteers of the Rocky Hill Fire Department and Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association. So what I'd like to do is make a motion that every volunteer belonging to the Rocky Hill Fire Department and Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance during the pandemic, starting in February 2020, be awarded a stipend in the amount of $500.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion.
Yeah, the only concern I have about that is certain criteria. Some members may have done minimal and still been considered active, whereas others may have gone above and beyond. So I'm just wondering if the chiefs could create some sort of criteria where certain members who put in a certain number of hours would get that money. My fear is just opening up to everybody because some people just really weren't part of it.
So would that be to potentially take that, whatever that amount is, the 500 per member, and allocate it like as a block grant to those departments instead of individually? Is that kind of what you'd be suggesting?
Yeah, and they'll give more discretion to the supervisors.
Any comment?
Well, on the fire department, you might be able to do it through pay per call.
Right.
We keep statistics that way there for the fire. I'm not sure how the ambulance.
The ambulance does it too. They have their schedule and the amount of hours that each member puts in.
My only concern is then we're pitting potentially people who have volunteered for these roles against each other, because you may very well have, and I'm just speculating, you may very well have someone who is a volunteer who maybe did one call but has otherwise been helping pick up PPE or deliver PPE or, just to be a body in an office. I think the intent, or at least the spirit of this money, is to recognize these essential workers. And my concern is, we give one $500 because you went above and beyond. And I get that. I think they should be awarded. But to not award the others, especially in a volunteer situation, we don't want to lose anybody. And I think you may be creating some bitter feelings.
How would you be rewarding somebody who hadn't volunteered?
Well,
It should be up to it should be the discretion of the chief to identify that.
But by serving, by definition, if they're there and they're willing to serve, and again, I don't know if there's a certain number of calls where that qualifies you now as a volunteer. But if you're sitting there as a member, you're active, you're going to meetings or you're going to trainings, I don't know how we then start to pull that apart.
I mean, if you make one call, I suppose you could have the same potential to contract the virus as if you
Right.
make
No,
any call.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that they have criteria like within the ambulance. If you don't make a certain number of hours, then you're not a full-time voting member, for example. So the fire department and ambulance have their criteria for active full-time members versus an associate member or part-time member or whatever. I don't think just handing everybody an amount, irregardless of the amount of hours they put in or not put in, could be seen as disingenuous. Whereas some people went above and beyond and some people didn't do anything, and the people didn't do anything are getting money. That's my point.
I think what it looks like is the discussion is really about what is the metric, right? I mean, we all agree that people should be recognized for their service. The question is like, what is the right metric, right? If it's number of hours, to your point, like even if you put in 1 hour, right? And if there's another metric like the active volunteers, maybe if we can agree on a metric or two metrics, that's fine. But I think we need to be careful about what are those metrics, because they might not be inclusive enough and not fair enough, and just might hide some problems with with that criteria, right? Like, so yeah, anyways, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I just want to ask one question. I'm going to ask you, Councilor Manuel, just because you seem to know. The volunteers get certain benefits, right? So one of them is this stipend they get per call, correct? But what are the other ones?
Pension,
And what else?
tax incentives.
Now, are those broken down by calls, or does everyone get the property tax and does everyone get the pension?
No, I think you have to put in a certain number of hours to qualify for the property tax credit.
Do you know, John?
Usually you have to attend a certain percentage of the fire calls, as well as attend a number of training sessions they have, usually on Tuesday nights. Is there a third one?
Right, no, that's it.
But that's to keep your membership, so either you're a member or you're not.
Well, from the fire department standpoint, it would be you met your call requirements and you met your training requirements, therefore you qualify for a year of service. It's a year to your pension plan, years of service for your pension, as well as qualifying to get your property tax rebate. So if you don't meet those standards, then you don't get any additional time onto your a year added to your pension, then you don't get the property tax abatement.
So are you saying that we have people on the force now who just don't go to calls? and should
Well,
otherwise
there
not
could be people on the
the
force that,
membership?
there could be people on the force that don't meet the minimum amount of calls that they need to meet in order to achieve the pension and the property tax benefit.
But they do otherwise qualify as being a member for some purpose? Just to retain that name?
They could say they've been on the fire department for that year, but they didn't do what was needed in order to qualify to get those benefits.
Okay.
So I think instead of looking into specific number of hours or statuses, that, to Chris's point, if there's a grant, let's say there's 70 members in the fire department and 70 in the ambulance, that you allocate, what is it, Jeff, 3,500?
35,000.
35,000 times 2, and let the chiefs decide the criteria, like a grant, and the money that you don't use somehow gets.
So just to ask the question, so, because I'm just kind of learning stuff as we go. So if you were to say, for example, that everybody who qualified based on the criteria John Mayer was talking about received $500, is that kind of what you're talking about, or are you talking about something beyond that?
Oh, no, I totally agree with the 500. I'm just saying, what I'm just saying is not everybody that is a member of the department should get it.
But I guess my question is, once you get to the point where, okay, I've got my list of everybody that qualified, that did enough to qualify for pension, all of them can all get the same amount, though? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's.
Or John, you're saying that the metric will be what chief decides.
Exactly. It's really not for us to decide the metric.
But is that based on merit then? And are we trying to get into merit, or are we just more trying to recognize people who are in this role? I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just really trying to understand the spirit of this.
I think it's
gift.
whoever is active that puts in a certain amount of hours, whether they have a merit, deserved a merit or not. They're volunteering.
I would think, and that we might want, to, in terms of the recognition, it would be to recognize the people who maintain their level of service they are providing during this emergency period. And I'm not sure how that could be everybody. That could be 80%. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that might be the thought of how we wanted to recognize the folks. You know, they were already volunteering to do a great thing, and then they kind of doubled down through this, you know, really challenging period. And that might be what we want to recognize, but I'm not, you know.
So
Not sure.
let me just go my thought process through this. One is I was trying to make it so it was not subjective from the chief's standpoint. I didn't want to put something on the chiefs on top of what they're already doing, and trying to make it as much of a blanket attempt as I could. I recognize the challenge of you have people that are on the department name and they may not be participating actively. So maybe the wording we have to change a little bit is active members in good standing. And I don't know what each department's rules are for that, so I'm putting them out as a generic. But I'm trying to eliminate one or two people, being the chiefs, being responsible for doling out the merit money, and then someone pointing a finger saying, I did this, I did that.
Or everybody that met the criteria for the pension is eligible for the
Right.
stipend.
I mean, regardless of how you phrase it, I'll support it.
Yep.
I'm just saying, I didn't want to go down a rabbit hole
Sure.
and say, oh, somebody who did 2 hours a month
formula.
should get this money as the same as the person that did 150.
They just submitted more.
So, however you want to phrase it, that's fine. I support it. I'm just kind of identifying
The risk.
Yeah.
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 And I would think that whatever that number is, $500 per member, that should just be, if we do it with this approach, that's just however members qualify or whatever that number is, just divide it up amongst those people. You know, if it comes out they get 550 instead of the 500 because only a certain number qualified, like I think that's probably fine. We just don't, you know, we're not trying to do this to like claw money back, right? We're just trying to make sure that we're recognizing the folks who really, you know, went.
John, do you have any kind of really ballpark percentage, like of the force, how many you think would, like, is it like 99%? Is it 50%? I mean, I really, it's hard to.
I don't.
Or would
It's
you-
been a long time.
I just have a suggestion because the fire and ambulance had to fill out information as far as those that qualify for the tax. as well as those for the tax collector to put the abatement on their tax bill, as well as we need to submit information to the pension company on those fire and ambulance people that deserve an additional year of service. So I think one way maybe get around what you're trying to do, Alan, is if we take those volunteers that qualified and received a year of service for their pension, as well as qualified for a tax abatement from the town, would it be also entitled to a $500 stipend. So that's pretty much in place now, because they just happened to get a copy of it today, and I had to sign off on it. So it would list a high percentage of the fire department. I saw the fire, I haven't seen the ambulance, that would qualify for the stipend.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's already a process in place, so we might as well just piggyback off of it, maybe.
I think
You know,
that makes
it-
sense.
It seems to make sense. I'm just worried about on the bottom side, like if the chief saw that there was, I don't want it to be discretionary, I want there to be a rule, and those people get it, but I think that if somebody came in mid-year and did a fair amount of work but just didn't qualify, went to several big events, the chief should be able to reach back and ask for that, and then we could make an exception and say, do it,
Yeah.
Absolutely, because,
I mean, they're constantly recruiting. We know that they add 7, they lose 2, they add, so there's new folks coming on that may have subjected and exposed themselves for the good, just didn't get enough time to qualify for the tax credit. So that I just don't want to see, just because they're not the heavy hitters, that they don't get a shot at the stipend.
So how would we word this?
So do I need to withdraw the motion and remake the motion?
Can you
Probably be
can you
cleaner.
read
Could
your
I, could I
motion
just
again?
amend it?
Can you read your motion again?
It has all of them.
Oh, I'm gonna have to
No.
revise it. I can read my motion again, but I have to revise it now.
It shows what
All right, so I believe following procedure, I need to withdraw the motion.
Yeah.
So I'll only withdraw my motion,
Withdraw the second, too.
and I will make, we have to withdraw the
Oh,
second.
yeah, I'll withdraw the second.
Okay, and now I'll make a new motion that that members of the Rocky Hill Fire Department and Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance that qualified and received a year of service towards their pension and a tax abatement will receive a $500 stipend during the pandemic, which started in February 2020. And we will allow for anybody who joined the department that did not qualify to be awarded that stipend at the discretion of the chiefs.
I like it.
Second.
Got it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Joanne, make sure I said that right.
I will.
Make your life hard.
All right. Very well. Anything else? No.
No, I don't think so. Not on that one.
Any other items? No. I do have a list of different programs that Charlie Brown sent to me with respect to mental health and different things that he's involved with, things that he's starting up. So I can send that around to the council and forward that to Melissa, and then we can circle back at our next meeting what we want to do in that.
Great.
And then Wi-Fi, we're still waiting to hear something about Wi-Fi.
And we still haven't heard on the cameras and license plate
Oh, and
monitors
yes,
from the
that's
police
correct.
department for
Yeah.
a final cost.
John, we don't have any new numbers?
No, I guess it's a matter of if they want to move forward with it, how we go about it, because it could be a very costly project as far as bidding and so on. So I don't know if they got numbers back from the other ones yet. but it doesn't seem like it'd be too much of a problem installing them on light poles, which was a question, but apparently our Eversource contact has done it for Hartford and West Hartford, and I guess there's just a certain height that they have to use, but I think we may have to just send out a request for bids to the companies that do that as opposed to advertising it, and then the question would be purchase or lease and so on, but pretty much we were working off the same numbers we had last time at the moment. We haven't seen anything.
Right, I think that's right. They're focusing on leasing, so probably just look on getting quotes from the various leasing vendors is where they're going. And as he said, we just got word from Eversource that there's not major charges, which is one of those things they were holding back from, that there was going to be something, but it seems to be more of usage and signing on a contract. So that's the direction they'll go, is just reaching out quotes on the leasing vendors at that point and come back with those numbers.
Okay.
Can you remind us kind of like what ballpark numbers we're talking about? I mean, we're not going to hold you to it, but just so we have some
Right,
idea.
so the leasing side of it, that was about, well, I mean, I brought it with me, was around 12,000 for the 10 cameras per year, versus the purchase was about 170,000, but also included a $12,000 a year maintenance as well. So they were leaning toward, even though we didn't really want to commit to buying something outright. I mean, we wanted to do the buying outright, because of the ARPA money and not really just starting a lease and go ongoing, but it seems in their perspective that the leasing was probably in the best interest, because their goal was to start with 10 cameras perhaps, because they had the various streets and the two exit ramps, on-ramps and exit ramps. And that way with the lease, they had that flexibility of, maybe we don't want 10, we want 8, or we'd like to move them around. And especially with the feedback we got from Eversource today, that they seem to be more flexible and working with the towns. So it seemed about the 12,000 per year lease was for 10 cameras.
Is that all in, or is it just the equipment? Because it's the cameras, but then they has to transmit the data, and we got to store that data securely because it's everybody wherever they're going. So is that all in, or is there another vendor?
That was an all-in. They were storing the data as well.
And that's just not is that just license plate readers? That's also cameras.
Well, it was a reader and a camera at the same
It
time,
is,
so
okay.
it would snap in the shot of the
Right,
plate
okay.
and the. Yeah, but the deal was it had to be at least the 10 cameras, 1,200 per camera, so it's no less than the 12,000. And again, that was just one vendor. I was throwing the quote out. That's why we really have to go out and get the quotes from others to see how it works when you're looking competitively. We didn't want to go out and start doing that because then obviously we don't have.
And how
have
long
that
are these
coverage.
leases generally?
It was a 4-year lease for that. That was the quote at that point.
Can you prepay the lease to use ARP money more efficiently?
I imagine you could with the ARPA.
Well,
You can go to 2024.
if you want to
That
sign
was
the
the dates.
documents, Jeff, yes.
Mona, can
2024.
you go through, I know we have till 2024, so what is the date we have to allocate, and what's the spend date?
So the spend is the 2024, or as long as
Is
we're
it
allocating.
January, or what's the date?
December
December, okay.
2024.
Yep.
That's the end
That's the last day we can spend money?
for that tranche. So then I'm not sure what's
Okay.
going to happen on the second tranche. They come
Gotcha.
back and they give you a new extension. So this is just tranche 1, December 2024.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else?
Town manager's report? I don't.
Mayor's report.
Your mayor's report, town manager?
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, is there anything
She
else?
means on the ARP.
And you guys skip new business, so there you go. Okay, all right, so we'll end our ARP discussion, move on to new business.
We don't have any.
Okay. So we'll move on to the mayor's report. So I'll just recap very quickly. It's been a very busy 2 weeks since we last met. On the 22nd, the DVA held its kickoff of Stand Down 2021, and I was honored to be invited by Commissioner Sade to speak about our partnership and our commitment to working collaboratively with the Commissioner and the DVA to discuss different programming that we can have coming up in our new community center now that it is open. And if any of you are in need of services, or you know someone who may be a veteran or someone who is actively still involved in the military, or family members of military who needs help with housing or any type of health issues and mental health, please reach out to the DVA because they are always there to help you. On the 23rd, we had our first annual Mayor's Cup Golf Tournament at Rolling Greens, as Councilor Greenspan had mentioned. I want to congratulate our trophy winners, Scott Burbank and Eric Smith. Their names are going to be engraved on the trophy, and that trophy will be put in the new community center. I want to thank those who organized it, Attorney Mike Romano and the Rocky Hill Chamber, who hosted the event. And it all was for, as Councilor Greenspan said, the benefit of human services. It was an amazing turnout. There were 2 flights of golf, a morning flight and then an afternoon flight with 9 holes each. And then in between, the golfers came together and they had a really delicious luncheon at Casamiya. We had 9 event sponsors, 12 T-sign sponsors, 23 donation in-kind sponsors, and 31 raffle prizes. So again, I want to thank Mr. Romano and his committee, who are Nicole DiClemente, Melissa Hicks, Jerry Luzak, Brian Rosina, let's see who else, Michael O'Toole, and Dawn Sadajay. And thanks to all of our generous sponsors here in Rocky Hill and outside of Rocky Hill. Thank you to everyone who came to golf. And it does look like our human services will get a check for about $15,000. And then finally, on Saturday, we had our senior center ribbon cutting for our new state-of-the-art senior center, community center. And if you have not been in person yet, I think you are going to be in for a real treat. I want to thank Director Gina Marino for hosting such a great event. And then, of course, we had the lovely music of Bruno Cerati, for those of you who were able to come in and hear. We do have a video on social media. I'm going to see if we can get that transferred to the website. I'm not sure how that technology works. And again, I just want to say thank you to everyone who was involved in getting this project to the point of where we are today. And I do want to reiterate that we cannot forget those who came before us, the prior administrations, the prior staff, the volunteers, and all the families who kept this vision alive. And I do also want to thank the men and women who worked at the grassroots level to convince the voters that this was the right thing to do. It wasn't just an investment in one population or senior population, but it was an investment in our community, and I'm quite certain that it will be enjoyed for many generations to come. And that concludes my report, and we will move on to the town manager's report.
Well, thank you. Briefly, we do have a conditional offer out for an emergency management director, and we're in the process of doing our background checks and so on. On Friday, or as of September 30th, the town adjusted its mask requirements, sort of following Governor Lamont's Executive Order 13A. And the major change that the town implemented was that it now permits private and public entities to set their own mask rules for their locations under their ownership and control. The town municipal buildings are open to the public, but we ask visitors we're requiring visitors to wear masks. And the other thing is that town staff and boards and commissions have the option of having in-person meetings or continuing having virtual meetings at their choice. And that's pretty much the highlights of the new the new mask rules that would probably be in effect through February 15th, 2020, because the legislature extended the powers of Governor Lamont under the emergency declaration and executive orders through that date of February 15, 2020. Good news, the Greenways Council.
John, 2022.
2022, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. The Greenway Council did receive the application for the greenways that the town submitted, the path, the trail to be designated as a greenway. So they're reviewing the submission right now and will be getting back to us shortly. Just a follow-up on our lecture, our class on the Rocky Hill Ferry. Actually, the mayor and myself received an email Thursday afternoon from DOT saying that they're going for a federal transit administration grant to try to get money for the to replace the ferry with a battery electric vessel plus a charging station. So they're seeking $2.8 million from the federal, and they expect this to cost $3.5 million to do. The DOT is submitting their application tomorrow on Tuesday, so I don't know if there's much debate left. I'm sure they must have all their papers and FedEx envelopes made out. So that was just a notice from DOT about an electric ferry possibly in the future. And again, the ferry is in a DOT departmental budget, and they take care of all the expenses and so on. So, Fall Fest, a reminder, is October 16th from 3 to 8. The town hall will be closed on Monday, October 11th. And Alan mentioned the flu shot, so I'm all set.
John, I have a quick question for you about if you have an update on the app and the website, any launch date?
The website, they're reviewing content, and I believe it would be within hopefully the next 2 weeks. The app, I'm not sure how that stands because we had some delays getting clearance with Apple. So
I thought that was done last time we talked about that.
Well, we got the licensing and all that, so I think they're going to launch the website first and then follow up with the app.
Okay.
And just one question for town manager. So the mask mandate, I just was going to highlight, I think the mask mandate kind of worked. I mean, we not many towns did it, but we had a situation where now we're in the yellow. We're below 2 on the transmission rate, so
We're in
it
single
really
digits.
came around.
Yeah, we went from red, I think, down to, is it beige or
Beige.
yellow?
Yeah.
That means we're in single digits.
So it worked.
Yes.
To some degree. Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Good night.